You may notice that I spend a lot of time digging into what words mean. And this is because, in order to have proper discourse and dialogue, we actually have to have kind of an understanding and for lack of a better term, agreed upon understanding of communication, of the words that we use, of the meanings that we mean. Because if we use the same representation to mean different things, then we are not going to be communicating effectively. And that can be a huge, huge problem. Now, there's some inevitability to that because language is not static, communication is not static, it's ever evolving. But it is important to have some kind of baseline and to be able to explain ourselves in ways that are kind of clear. This kind of goes back to the whole private language argument of, if you had a language that you and only you understood, it would be of no use to anybody because the meanings would not be transferable to anybody else. Like language and communication are things that are only shared, right? So we need to ask the question, what even is technique, right? In the martial arts and in the fitness world too, right? In martial arts and fitness, we talk about technique a lot. And you have some people who harp and harp and harp on, good technique. And then you have other people who are like, well, technique doesn't matter. Or you have people that are, technique is highly individual. And the thing is that they all kind of have a point. And to the end goal, like if you really dig down into the arguments, there are going to be some differences, but oftentimes they're talking about very similar and overlapping things. But because they're defining things differently, there seems to be more of an argument than there is. So the first thing that we need to do is define what the word technique means, right? So technique actually goes back to Greek, technikos, which just means of art, pertaining to skill. Remember, art means skill, a learned skill. Art does not mean creative expression. And, it just in common English, it means how you do a thing, right? Technique is how you do something, right? A skill is, a method of doing, performing, creating, whatever, right? And the technique is how you do that. And we all know that there's going to be some level of variability because no two human beings are the same person, are in the same place at the same time, right? Under the same conditions. We know that there is variability in the environment inherently, which means that there's going to be variability in the technique. We know this. So then we have to go and define like what is good technique then, right? Because if we know it's going to be variable, we probably still need to have some understanding of what makes it good so that we can assess, whether it's good or not, right? So, number one, what is good technique, right? How you do a thing, right? Technique, it is pertaining to skill. It's how you do a thing. So, number one is it achieves the objective, at least within an acceptable margin, which we can otherwise say it increases your odds of success. Good technique starts with, does it do the job? Because if it does not fulfill that, none of the rest of it matters. Number two, does it reduce risk of failure? So here's the thing, it might do the job within a certain margin. How wide is that margin? And where is unacceptable? And in our case, in martial arts especially, we come up against direct resistance, right? In fitness, resistance is typically passive. Resistance is usually just gravitational pull or mechanical pull of a resistant force. But in martial arts, you're directly dealing with another agent or multiple agents, sometimes using mechanical enhancements, sometimes not. And so your technique not only has to achieve that objective within an acceptable margin, it has to reduce the risk of failure. And in our case in martial arts, it very particularly, that risk of failure includes avoiding injury and counters. Right, so it has to be tactically viable in a way that that you don't create Pyrrhic victories. Ideally, you want to avoid Pyrrhic victories because, like, losing by winning is barely a win, right? And then, of course, we can go down to, is it more efficient than other options? And this is kind of where people will start to look at what is good technique. Does it produce results in a way that increases or that improves, right? And increase is hard because which side are you increasing, right? But it improves the cost-benefit ratio, meaning that you get more benefit for less cost. Now, that's kind of just a rough outline of what we would call good technique. Notice that I haven't said the technique of this thing or that thing or whatever, right? Because it's all contextual. And this is the thing, right? This is why I put an asterisk up here. It is all subject to context. Remember, I have said, and like, I don't know if you've seen the other video or if you've been around me in person, so assume I have said, context is your conditions and consequences. Context is really just the conditions that you are operating in and the consequences of the actions that you are taking. And that is going to determine all of this. Now, we said here, right, it achieves the objective within an acceptable margin, right? A good technique can increase that effectiveness to a point where the magnitude of effect is better, right? So you could look at effectiveness as part of this efficiency, right? Because we're talking cost versus benefit. One of those benefits is going to be magnitude of effect. If you can get more magnitude of effect for equal cost or less cost, why wouldn't you do that? And sometimes, would you be taking an acceptable hit on magnitude of effect by decreasing cost? And that's a really important thing to look at. So when we're talking about technique, what we are talking about is a very, very general concept based on a handful of principles, mostly related around success, risk, efficiency, cost, and benefit. And if you cannot define those terms, those parameters, then you're not going to be able to tell what is a good technique or a bad technique. So often in martial arts and in fitness, people base what they consider good technique off of aesthetics. But the thing is that aesthetics kind of don't tell the whole story. And we'll talk about that another time. And it is very, very easy to be fooled by aesthetics. Somebody can have very good aesthetics, but be completely empty, right? Devoid of the function that those aesthetics are trying to advertise, because they're not really meeting those criteria. So something can look really good. Remember, aesthetics isn't just looks; it's all sensory perception. But something can be, sensorially pleasing, whatever. Something can be sensorially pleasing, but does not satisfy, effectiveness, especially high degree effectiveness. It might expose you to more failure. It may be just very inefficient, right? So we have to understand that basing things off of aesthetics is basically, it's using a proxy. And if we don't understand that the aesthetics are a proxy, then we're kind of missing it. How many times have you watched somebody doing a form and you just go, that doesn't look right? And then other times you watch somebody doing a form and you go, oh, that guy knows what he's doing, right? And sometimes you may not have the language or the analysis to be able to explain that, but sometimes you can kind of see it, and it's not in the aesthetics. It's in things like their body structure and the intent of their movement. There are perceptual things that you can grasp from the overall context of what you're observing that can tell you more than you may be ready to analyze and explain. But far too often, people base things off of baseline aesthetics, right? Surface level aesthetics, without digging in underneath, and they kind of just miss the boat entirely, right? So technique is just how you do something. And first and foremost, technique has to achieve the thing, ideally with a higher magnitude of effect than lower. It should be avoiding risk of failure, including risk to your own ability to continue to perform. And then, of course, we want efficiency. We want a very good cost to benefit ratio. So that's what technique is. And you have to be able to define that before you can, you have to be able to define those parameters before you can actually say technique is good or bad. So with that, I'm going to get out of here and I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.